Well, good morning. It has been a minute since I've been out here by myself. I have been super busy. I know I have not posted many videos. But I started another LLC I'll be working on called Cloud to Ground Media, where I will focus on drone services, a little bit of just technology consulting, 360 imagery, mapping services, all sorts of stuff. And then also started boat captaining for some kids from Mount Perrin. So that's been keeping me busy. That has been a blast. Looking forward to our tournament coming up. And that is on top of just working full time. So I've got a whole bunch of stuff going on, but a lot of big changes for next year, and that's not just lip service. I really do have a lot in store. But first, we retie. I've noticed that the fall schooling bite for me seems very different than in years past. It's almost like it doesn't exist in the fall. It's like it just keeps going through the summer. I don't know if it's the herring or what, but the summer schooling bite, not only does it not go away, it just seems to get better. And then for me, late September, early October, it's like they all just vanished. And then came out for a trip sometime early October. We were looking for schoolers, couldn't find anything. It just wasn't a great trip, but it happens. And then the next time I came out, started looking again for the schoolers, and after about an hour, I was like, all right, something is off. Let's just go look deep. And sure enough, we went to go look in areas that I would call winter areas, like channels, creek channels, river channels, offshore stuff. It was loaded. So I don't know if that's the herring. I don't know if it's just me. Everyone else thinks I'm crazy and they see something totally different, but October schooling used to be incredible. Now I just feel like October is now just winter fishing. For bait fish stuff anyway. The jig bite has been off the charts. I promise I know what I'm doing. All right. So some of the comments I've had recently, oh gosh. He smacked it. Some of the feedback I got, people were saying they want to know more about the process, the decision making, and why I'm starting on one spot. He's still eating it. So, I'm back in Stamp Creek. See deer running through the woods. Pretty normal this time of year. It's a great time of year to be just outside in general, but on the lake, obviously I get to fish, but got them. But you get to see a lot of cool stuff in the woods too. Anyway, I'm back in Stamp Creek, and why? Just because. Came back here and had some good luck with the jig, so I want to throw the jig a little bit. and I'm just starting on a rocky bank. There's no crazy rhyme or reason or magic that I have that you don't. I'm just back here looking at some trees and some wood and some rocks, and I'm casting around. So got some lay downs up here in the water. I'm gonna hit that. Probably really should have a square bill on because I got this chatterbait, so we're gonna make do. And I'm just fishing, that's all. Just fishing to find fish. So this time of year, still a transition time of year, even if, you know, I said that it seems like they just kind of went deeper, but that's been my experience with the fish after bait, the fish chasing after shad or herring, what have you. There's still a lot of fish shallow. You could go throw a buzzbait or a plopper. I've had real good luck on a popper, fishing it real slow this time of year on points. And so all that to say, sometimes I'll pick a spot that maybe has a little bit of everything that I could try. Maybe not out totally in the main lake channel, maybe not so far up the creek that my lower unit's dragging, somewhere in between. So I'm halfway back in Stamp. And I got some options. I could fish some deep stuff, I could fish shallow stuff, I could fish bait fish, I could fish brim eaters, craw eaters, all in the same area. Fishing in these trees like this, I want a heavy action rod. This is a 7.4 heavy, 20-pound fluoro. That's about perfect. I don't want to be tossing 12-pound test up there. This is a 3/8 ounce jig. And I'm not overly complicating my jig. This is a Chattahoochee jigs, kind of the Arky style head, green pumpkin trailer. And that is it. Come on. Get off. You can pretty much reel this through anything if you're just paying attention. The biggest thing with jig fishing is understand what your jig feels like. If you don't know what your jig feels like just sitting there attached to your line, you're not going to know when you have a bite unless it's just unbelievably obvious. And you will get bites every now and then that feel like your rod got struck by lightning. But that's maybe 10 to 20% of the time, my experience. A lot of times it's just a very small tick, or sometimes it feels like a leaf, like a big wet leaf. Other times you just lose contact with your bait because the fish ate it, it's coming to you. So get used to what your jig feels like just sitting there on the bottom. Kind of when you pull, you want to be able to understand, all right, my jig has this much resistance without wind, just sitting there on the bottom. Oh, just had a bite. And it takes practice. It takes a lot of practice to get good at it, but just give it a try. And some people like to go crazy heavy so that they can feel the bottom better. Don't do that. Just don't do it. You're gonna get hung so much, you're just gonna be frustrated, you're gonna be wasting money. Go lighter. If you can get used to a 1/4 ounce jig in the wind, then you dang sure can throw whatever else you need in terms of jigs when the weather's nice and it's not windy. So get used to a 1/4, 3/8 ounce jig. And again, you're not gonna always feel that bait like smacking the rocks and smacking bottom. Where I'm fishing right here, it's mostly sand, a little bit of clay. I'm not targeting rocks in this specific case. I'm targeting this tree and this tree and that tree. So right now my jig is hung just a little bit. A couple things I like to do to try to get it unhung is lift my rod up real high, see if I can pop it up and over. And if I can't, I'll try the bow and arrow. So my line is almost tight when my rod is just about straight up. And I'll hold my rod up like this. I'll grab the line. And my rod tip is now dropping towards my bait. You see this finger holding this line out. Oh, there we go. Came off before I could even let go. But what will happen is I can pull tension, pull my rod just a little bit to keep it kind of tight, and then let go. Sometimes it's just enough to kind of snap your bait backwards just a hair. You'd be surprised how much, how often that will work. It's called the bow and arrow. At least that's what I've heard it called my whole life. All right, I am switching jigs for a second because I want to hit these rocks, these deeper rocks behind me. So instead of the Arky style head, this is just a Picasso 3/8 ounce tungsten football jig, just a little finesse jig. And I like this small jig for just dragging around on points, rocky banks, etc. This is a spotted bass killer. And again, colors, trailers, etc. I keep it simple. There's green pumpkin, and I've got a green pumpkin blue Super Chunk Junior by Zoom on the back. I really like the Zoom creepy crawler as well. So between the creepy crawler and this Super Chunk Junior, just had a lot of success with those trailers on these finesse jigs. And this is a little bit of a heavier jig for how shallow I'm fishing. I should really be throwing a 1/4 ounce, but I don't let my bait sit. I try not to let it, get wedged in the rocks. I keep my rod tip high, and I'm not moving my bait a long distance, but I'm constantly kind of pulling it up to make sure it stays on top of the rocks rather than getting wedged deep down in them. So I just have to work this bait a little bit more carefully than if I had just a 1/4 ounce jig head. And with this 3/8 ounce, again, it's a little heavy. I'm not casting 6 inches from the bank. I'll keep it 5 feet from the bank if it is kind of a shallow spot, just so by the time it hits the bottom, it's kind of slowed down just a little bit. If you take this bait and you cast in 6 inches of water, I mean, it slams into the bottom. So your chance of getting it hung right off the bat is 10 times what it would be if you just keep it a couple feet from the bank. And those little details really can make the difference in you having success, both in terms of getting bites, catching fish, but also success in terms of not getting hung. Nothing will make you want to throw your jig rod down and do something else than getting hung all the time. Just reeling it real slow. I know I'm on the bottom. I can release all the tension on my line, just see my line kind of sitting there on the water, and I'll just kind of drag it. I don't work this bait with my reel. I just drag my kind of rod towards me and pull that jig along the bottom. For this finesse jig, this is a 7.1 medium heavy, and I'm throwing 12-pound test on this. I'm not fishing in the heart of laydowns or anything like, skipping up under docks, just fishing rocks. It's more open water situation, and it's a finesse jig, so it's more of a finesse presentation overall. So 6.5, 7.5 medium heavy, something like that. And then this is 12-pound test. 15 would be fine too. I know some guys even throw 10. With all the rocks and things that I'm reeling this through, I like 12 or 15 for this. And there's a big difference in 12 and 15 pound with how your bait reacts. So, if I was getting hung just a little bit too much, say maybe I didn't have a 1/4 ounce jig with me, if I put this on 15-pound tests, that bait is going to sink much more slowly. So a 3/8 ounce jig would get hung a lot less on 15-pound than it likely would on 12-pound, because that line is, the 12-pound is thinner, it'll sink faster, there's less resistance. 15 is thicker, more resistance, so it slows the rate of fall. So keep those things in your mind. There's a lot of variables when you're fishing, and you need to be aware of as many as you can. So if you're throwing a jig, like, man, I'm just getting hung all the time, this is terrible. Well, you're either throwing the wrong jig, you're throwing it in the wrong spot, maybe you're casting right up on the bank and it's getting hung every time. Your line may be too light, maybe, you know, throwing the wrong jig head. It could be any number of things. So just pay attention to those details. It'll help you really dial in your whole setup, from your jig, your trailer, your line, your rod, and then even where you're fishing, and then how far up to the bank or whatever you're casting out you're actually casting to. Uh-oh. What was that? There we go. That was weird. Maybe there's a brush pile down there. That got hung off the bottom. All right, just another couple more casts. Oh, there's one. Let's see. No, this little guy. Didn't hit it very hard. Chill. He's pretty deep. He's probably 20 feet or so. Just a little guy. Nothing big. But there's the jig. There's the trailer. Super simple. One other detail. This is worth mentioning. On these chunk style trailers, come on, golly, whatever, got some fish meat on there. You could rig it either straight up, you know, basically like so, and have a bigger profile. So just go right up through the bottom and then out the top. This is a finesse jig, so what I like to do, this is a small trailer, but it's a small jig, so I'm gonna go right through the front. Just go all the way out the back side of that chunk. Push it up. And it's way more compact, but it works. I barely felt that fish. Like, I can't even explain it. I can't even say that I felt a tick or a thump. It's almost like my hand and my brain just kind of react to, hey, that was a little different. This is a technique for a really, really sensitive rod. It's not required, but it really makes it nice. You'll start to set the hook and you'll realize, I don't even know why I just set the hook, but you'll have a fish. So it's almost like you're subconsciously detecting bites. But when I thought I had a bite, the first thing I did was just reel a little bit tight and kind of pull back a little bit. I could tell the line felt just a little resistance. Not a lot. It almost feels like I'm, pulling on a rubber band. That's all it was. He bit that jig and was swimming to me. I thought I had a bite again there, but I pull tight, can look at my rod. It's not doing anything. I'm just down there in a tree or a rock at this point. Not setting the hook, not getting trigger happy. There we go, up. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some brush down there. Some up and over, but that's where the fish will be. So it's important to be able to distinguish wood from a bass, because I want my jig to be right down in there, in all that stuff. I'm gonna drop it back down. See if I can get one more bite. All right, last cast. I gotta get out of here. Whoa. Oh. There he is. Oh gosh. Think he wanted that? What do you think? Not big, but big ones will come, I assure you that. So if I took someone out and they were trying to learn how to fish a jig, especially right now, I'd give them a 1/4 ounce finesse jig, like a little spotty or a football jig head. And we'd mostly be focused on fishing real close to the bank or up shallow. I told you I'm fishing this 3/8 and it's a little bit heavier than probably what's best, but for me, I'm used to dealing with it in shallow water. I can also take that same bait and cast to an offshore spot, get it down 45 feet or so, even deeper, and do it relatively quickly. So it gives me the option to fish shallow and deep, but I'm very much used to changing how I work the jig in shallow water versus changing how I work the jig in deep water. So that's one of the advantages. And it feels very different. It feels much spongier in 45 feet than it does in 5 feet. So you have to be aware of that. But if you get to the point where you are aware of that and you're comfortable, you can take one jig and have a really, really versatile lure.